Hey, everybody, welcome to today's program. My guest today touches on a subject that we will all deal with, and she'll share with you how you're going to be one of 4 categories that will absolutely want to connect to what Miss Kay Harris has to offer. She's the Caregivers Advocate and my guest today. Welcome, welcome.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be here.
Those 4 categories, tell me about them.
It was Jimmy Carter's wife, the first lady, who said there's only 4 categories of people: the people who have been caregivers, the people who are currently caregivers, the people who will be caregivers, and the people who need caregivers.
What's a caregiver?
Well, in my definition, it's a person who puts their own priorities aside to take care of someone else and feels that that is their role in life, reluctantly sometimes or passionately sometimes. But it's basically putting a lot of what you thought you were going to do on a shelf and prioritizing someone else.
So I have to say, for me, that was a short period of time. My dad passed very quickly, and my mom was much more challenging. Mm-hmm. And I loved her so much that I thought we could take care of her in the house.
Yes.
Which at some point, and we're going to talk about this, becomes anger, resent, frustration. And it's different. You know, people say, well, you take care of a baby, but it's very, very different because a baby's got their whole life ahead of them and they're little.
Yes.
My mom was bigger and there was a lot of things going on. And we moved her to a nursing home. She lasted 24 hours.
Yes.
It was and then you have that guilt of going, oh, did I do that? There's so many aspects of what you just said.
Yes.
So how did you come to this? You didn't set out to be a caregiver?
Oh, absolutely not.
I don't think anybody does.
I grew up right here in St. Petersburg, Florida, the youngest of 6 children, so I was the caboose on the family train. And I was a baby boomer, which meant I grew up thinking women are supposed to be the caregivers in the family. They're the ones who stay home and take care of everybody. And the fathers are the ones who go out and do business and make the decisions. Well, what I knew was I did not want to be like my mother, taking care of people. I wanted to be an opera singer and an author.
Seriously?
Yes, possibly because I felt I didn't have a voice as the youngest child.
Yeah, but going to opera singers...
Yeah, well, I found out in high school that I had a voice that I didn't know I had, and I had a fabulous teacher. She says, you need to be on the stage. And I said, okay. So
She called me. She said she should sing, yes.
Yes.
Hey, would you mind singing for us?
Yes. She said, you
No,
need
seriously, I want to hear it.
Do you want to hear her sing?
I do.
Okay. I have a dream about you, baby.
I love this. No, but, okay, musical theater was my jam.
Okay.
How do you get to opera?
I got to opera because that was what I was offered a scholarship in by the St. Pete Male Chorus. They liked to hear female singers that did opera. And it was my music teacher in high school who said, you got to go for this contest. And I said, well, I don't know if I want to be a singer or an author. She says, go for this contest. I won the contest, which was amazing. And I
won a scholarship for opera.
I won a scholarship for opera. And then that wasn't the big challenge. The contest wasn't the big challenge. My father was back in the back of the room saying, what is she doing this for? She's going to be a wife and mother. And my mother was applauding.
Oh my gosh.
She was so happy for me. Well, I got all that done, and I got off to school and everything. And then I figured out, maybe I could make a career out of this kind of thing. And that's what happened. And I started out that way.
Okay.
And that was my dream. That's what I wanted to do, certainly to be more like my father, taking care of business, taking care of me. And that's why it started, anyway.
So what kind of business were you doing out of school?
Well, out of school, I fell in love when I went off to college. That was unexpected. I fell in love with a sweet country boy and got married, and that was great. That was something I could write about and sing about for sure. But actually, in the 70s, you may be too young to recall this, but in the 70s, women had to get out of the home and go to work. Inflation, child care centers were coming up everywhere, and there weren't any jobs locally for opera singers at the time.
That's a tough one.
So I got into technology and found out I was excellent at technology. I became a computer programmer.
Are you serious?
I did, and I loved it. And I did that and research for the next 32 years. I didn't know I was going to stay in that, but that's how it turned out.
Children?
2 children came along. Life was good. My husband became a CPA. Everything was going well for us. And I thought, okay, great. I can sing along. I taught my children to sing. Three of my children are singers. And so things were going great. And then June 1980 came along, and it was supposed to be a celebration night. We were almost to our 12th anniversary, picked up my girls at school, was looking for my husband. I got home, and I couldn't find him. And I went out and into the backyard, looked around for him, and there he was. He had a beautiful garden. He was sitting right in the middle of the garden, his arms wrapped around his knees, rocking back and forth and sobbing. It was surreal. For a moment, I didn't think I was even there looking at this. And he couldn't say a thing. Well, back in those days, you didn't call for the paramedics. You took somebody to the hospital when something like that happened. So I got him in the car, grabbed up my little girls. We all went to the hospital. And within about 3 hours, I learned some new words that this possible author had never heard, such as SMI, which stands for serious mental illness, non-responsive, and acute depression.
That just came on?
It just came on.
Oh, wow.
Out of the blue. And I could say blindsided, terrified.
I'm sure.
And this very strong young girl for the first time felt completely and utterly alone. And so that was the start of what became 17 years of repeated depression episodes, heart disease, three heart surgeries, and then just in the latter years, hypomania, which was when they turn into a completely different person who can fly up, thinks they can fly off buildings and
How did
things
this
like that.
affect your kids?
It affected my daughters more. My son didn't come along for another 6 or 7 years. But my daughters, I think, did fine because I developed this strategy with no resources back in the 80s and 90s, no help, no support, nothing I could turn to. And the medical community, of all places, wouldn't even answer my questions.
Wow.
I developed a strategy called View in the Headlights. It was in a sermon I heard once where it said, if you know where you're going at night and it's dark, as long as you can go as far as the headlights, you'll get to your destination. Don't worry about it. That's your view in the headlights. Every day of my life during those 17 years, I got up and I said, what can I do for the next hour, for the next day?
Oh, wow.
And just look for one day at a time because I had no resources. And shame, stigma, and silence was what shrouded mental illness in those days. And you just didn't talk about it. And there were no resources, not even a book at the library on mental illness. So I was a tough kid, and I made it almost 10 years with my view in the headlights approach before hypomania set in. And he was spending money and acting giddy. This quiet little man was acting giddy. And I finally had to reach out for some help.
Oh, wow.
And that help came, strangely enough, from an unlikely hero, my older brother.
Really? What happened?
He was in Chicago. He was a clinical psychologist. And I just reached out to him. I said, what do I do? And he sent me letters that I thankfully kept long enough to write a book about it one day. And he said, you've made some mistakes here, girl, and you need to go see a therapist for yourself. And I did that. And I found out that I'd done some things right. My girls were doing well. Everything was fine there. But I had also done this thing called accepting responsibility for somebody else's illness. I didn't know I was doing that. I didn't know about boundaries back in those days.
Right.
But in other words, I took the responsibility for my husband, and he just did what he did. And when he fell apart, I was there. When he got better, I got him back to work, and I didn't realize what I was doing wrong. So I had a lot of soul searching to do, and things got better. Did they get great? No, because what I learned before he finally passed away on his third open heart surgery, he finally passed away in 1998. And what I learned was there are some things that no amount of love, no amount of therapy can ever fix. And that's the title of my book, What Love Can't Fix. And what I hope in that, writing that book much later in life, is that the lessons that I learned and the appreciation I grew for caregivers would be something that other people could resonate with. This is not a self-help book that I've written. It's more let me take you on a journey to what life is like. Because I learned in writing this book, in the winter of my life, actually, I had a few more mountains to climb even after that first mountain. I learned a lot of mistakes I made in my life. But what I really learned was that it's a blessing. In the long run, the book I was meant to write was that 17 years with my husband.
Wow.
And the reason I needed to write that as years went by is because I found out there are caregivers everywhere. The
Right.
first readers of my book, one man, a young man had a son in a wheelchair who was a law student at Florida State, and then he had a wife with MS. He was as much more than me.
Wow.
He was going to be with that son forever. Then one of my female readers took care of her mother for 30 years with dementia. Caregiving goes way beyond just what I went through. And then every single parent that I know who had to deal with raising children, having a job, trying to be both parents, they're caregivers. Caregivers are everywhere.
Wow.
Everywhere. And of course, now, at the time I was writing the book, we had just been through COVID. And then we had this thing called cyberbullying that was going on because of social media. My guess is, and I haven't done the research yet, is that either it's more prevalent nowadays than it was, or else we're just more aware of it, because I'm afraid there's not going to be much data from the time period of the 80s and 90s when I went through it. And I'm a good researcher. I'd love to know.
How did cyberbullying affect your family?
Not my family, because my girls were grown and gone and are amazingly successful and beautiful people. And my son was only 11, so he only remembers a dad who played baseball with him and took him fishing. And that's a blessing. I've learned since that it's tough on the sons to see their father not get out of bed and not go to work and change his moods for
Yeah. So you have this beautiful book. Tell us again the title.
What Love Can't Fix.
And I understand you got a very powerful endorsement.
I did. I got an endorsement from Jack Canfield himself. Something told me not to send that book to editing in early August. For some reason, and I found out I was invited to have an interview with Jack Canfield, one of my many idols.
And for those
as
of
an
you
author.
who may wonder, he is the gentleman responsible for, along with Mark Victor Hansen, for Chicken Soup of the Soul.
Absolutely.
Which is a billion-dollar brand. And he's a very
Absolutely.
generous, kind man. I know him.
And he actually was the man I talked to when I was 75 years young, and I had an interview, a Zoom interview with Jack Canfield, and I said, "Can I write a book in 3 months?" He says, "I don't think so. If it's been about 60 years, I think."
Oh, that's so funny.
Yes. I think you need a coach, and I got a coach, and that coach helped me create the book, and then I finally got to 2 years later get an interview with him to endorse it. That was such a gift.
I love
And along the way, I learned, well, maybe I can teach these things to people. So
Yep.
I learned to be a coach, and then maybe I can get on a stage and speak. And this wonderful lady who I thought touched baseball, because she says she pitches like a pro. So I don't know why she keeps showing up in my feed. Well, there she is. So I learned that things kind of fall together in place in a synchronicity
Yes,
kind of
synchronicity.
way.
I'll tell you what, I'm very blessed to be along your journey. Because I think what you're doing is so profound, again, for others. It's not what we have to go through, but the fact that you survived it, had the wherewithal and the talent to write about it. It's a
Right.
beautiful book that you've done.
thank
Will you look at my audience here and share with them what you want them to know, why the book's important, and if they're currently or anticipating being a caregiver, what they can look forward to?
Absolutely. Well, sailors, quality sailors are not built on calm seas. They got to navigate the tough waters. And what I learned eventually from all of this, and for all the difficulty of caregiving and for any other mountains I had to climb, was that we learned from the storms in our life. We learn from those storms the lessons that we can then share with others. And you can actually understand too that when you've been through a storm, you're a different person than the one who walked into that storm. And that, after all, is the purpose of the storm. And that's kind of the theme of the book that I talk about. And so I want to now reach out to everyone who is a caregiver or knows one or will be one or will need care to find out that there are resources. There is support now, and I offer this on my website at klharris.com. Please go there, because I have resources for you. You can schedule a free session. Just let me talk to you and give you a little bit of love and some information and maybe a hug for anyone who's interested in that. And I'm looking forward to now being a speaker about it and actually maybe writing a couple more books about some other mountains I had to climb. But I hope you'll come and join me and find out that whatever storm you've been through life, there is a rainbow after that storm. and you just need to take another look at that rainbow and find out what you're here for. And it might be a lesson that you never thought you needed to learn.
What would you like your kids to remember about you?
That I was able to survive and thrive during the most difficult period of my life. And one of the reasons was because of them.
Yeah.
I had to eventually learn that I had I waited too long to tell my girls. They knew something was wrong.
Right.
And I just kept hoping he'd get better. Oh, hope's not a solution. And
Hope is not a solution.
And love isn't either for some things, you know. But I loved him through it. And all three of my kids now are Jims, so I did something right.
Oh, you did a lot of things right, my girl, and you're just getting started, which is so exciting.
Yes.
So one more time, say your website.
My website is KL Harris. Got to put the L in there. For love in there. And I would love for you to come connect with me and let me give you some of that love that I've learned to have.
So as Rosalind Carter said, you're going to be one of the 4 groups, and Kay's got you. Whether you need one, know somebody who's being a caregiver currently. And if you are at the moment, make sure that you currently do reach out. One of the things I discovered is a very lonely path to go, and the resentment that builds up, and that's not what you're here for. I love that the L stands for love in Miss Kay Harris, certainly in her book and all that she does. It's been my honor to have her as a guest. See you guys again next time.
Thank you.